Hi there. We're going to talk today a little bit about what to do for the people who have repeated foot fractures. This is something that's come up in a couple of different groups recently, including ours. And as you may know, I'm a huge proponent of doing footwork for those of us with osteoporosis. It's such a fundamental part of what affects how we walk, how we stand, how we exercise. And if you are prone to foot fractures, that affects everything else. And this is one of those places where we have to be so cautious when we're giving information or we're giving advice about how to move and how to exercise with osteoporosis, because everybody's journey is different, everybody's bone density and fracture risk is different, everybody's bone strength is different. So I think if you are one of the people who is prone to foot fractures and you have a lot of foot pain, the tendency is going to be to not do anything with your feet at all, because it's so scary to get more fractures. But the downside to that is then all the soft tissues around your foot become less adept, less strong, less pliable. Sorry, I'm in the boat and the light's going to go up and down a little bit, but that's okay. And so your feet become less adept, you become more prone to tripping, and tripping can become a fracture hazard. And so we want to maintain that pliability in your feet as much as possible. Is this going to improve your bone density in your feet? No, it's probably not. Maybe if you're getting enough foot strength, you're getting some pull on the bones, and that's going to stimulate some bone growth. But mostly what we're looking for is for your feet to be more comfortable and for them to be more adept and more pliable. Because remember, even with osteoporosis, it's not always all about bone density. It's also about our balance and our comfort. And so, if you can get your foot up over your knee, that's going to be your starting point. And all you're going to do to begin with is just gently massage your foot. So you can do like a little soft squeeze of your foot. I have both thumbs on the bottom of my foot and my fingers across the top. And it's just a little squish, right, of whatever degree of pressure feels good for you. If you're dealing with a current or recent fracture, obviously you're going to stay away from that fracture site. We don't want to be putting pressure where it hurts. That's the other part of this. If you've had a number of foot fractures, you know how much they hurt. And your nervous system gets attuned to that discomfort. So part of what we're trying to do is give your foot some stimulation that feels good to help your nervous system kind of recognize, oh, my foot can feel something that's not just pain. So that should give you a couple of minutes of just a nice little soft massage. And then from there, go for an ankle circle. So you're not trying to move your knee, you're just working into your ankle joint, making as round a circle as you can. So now we're using the muscles in your calf, we're using the muscles in your shin, the muscles around your ankle and your foot. This also helps to increase your foot responsiveness and pliability, helps your balance, and makes you more able to absorb changes in terrain like the edge of a carpet or an unexpected change directions, an unexpected lump or bump or something that might be inclined to make you trip and potentially create that fracture risk if your feet are super tight. So a couple more circles in this direction. And you're keeping your circle in whatever range feels safe and doable for you. The goal here is not to push you into a place where every circle makes you go, I'm afraid, right? So your circle might be really tiny and it might not be at all like a circle. It might be much more like a quadrilateral, and that's okay. The next thing you're going to do is wiggle your toes. If you're tired of having your leg up and over your knee at this point, you can bring your foot down to the floor and just lift and lower your toes. Press your toes down into the ground and lift them up. Again, keep your range in something that feels like it's not creating undue pressure. Remember that with osteoporosis, we want to avoid going to end range motion, right? We talk about that in terms of flexion, rotation, and side bending. But if you're really prone to foot fractures, the same thing is true for your feet. You don't want to go as far as you possibly can. You want to stop at that like 75, 80% range. And then if you can lift just your big toe, you could do that. And then the other 4 toes, you could do that. This is a great skill to work on if you're like, Allison, that is not possible. People don't individuate their toes. You can, in fact, individuate your toes, and it's a really good thing to work on. Another thing that you can try, and I often do this standing, there's a whole section on this in my osteoporosis program. But if you are prone to fracture, you don't necessarily want to be doing this and putting that amount of pressure on your metatarsals. So you can do it sitting down. You want a ball that feels like a good, reasonably, not super hard. You don't want something that has no give to it, like a golf ball. And just very gently roll across the surface of your foot. You can go backwards and forwards. You can go side to side. You want to, again, you're not pushing down into it any more than feels good to you. You can just be letting your foot rest very gently on the ball. This is great because it's mapping the shape of your foot in your brain. It's giving your brain a better sense of where your foot is in space. As a side benefit, this is great for your hips and your pelvic floor because your pelvic floor is very connected to your feet. And then you can stop and put your foot on the floor and just see how you feel from side to side. How does that foot feel like it's connecting into the floor? Does it feel wider, smoother, heavier, warmer? Any one of those things could be true. And then we will do the same thing on the other side. So in whatever way works for you, ankle up over your knee. If you can't get your ankle over your knee, then maybe you are sitting on your bed and you're working this way, right? Whatever position allows you to get access to your foot is the best position for you today. And again, we're just going to spend a couple of minutes pressing, rolling our thumbs across, squeezing, but gently, right? In whatever amount of pressure feels good to you. You can be kind of shifting and moving the skin, right? So you're not actually trying to do anything as deep as getting into a muscle. You're just moving the skin across the top of your foot or across the bottom of your foot. And again, skipping any areas that are painful and or recently fractured. And then from there, we're going to do our circles, 8 ankle circles, 8-ish. Playing around with what's the right circle size on this side, because it might not be the same, right? Even for people who don't have fractures, people who don't have any kind of osteoporosis related thing, if you have arthritis, if you have plantar fasciitis, if you have bunions, right? There are lots of other things that could be going on in your feet, change directions, that would alter how this whole sequence feels from foot to foot. So pay attention to doing the size of the actions and the degree of the pressure that feels really good for that particular foot, instead of just assuming you should be able to do it the same from side to side. If you're getting clicking in your ankle, you can make your range a little smaller. And then you pause here, you bring your foot down onto the floor, you shift so that you can have your foot visible to the camera. And then again, lift and lower your toes. The goal here is to just lift your toes, not to lift your whole foot. So you're not trying to roll. See, here's the inside ball of my foot. I'm trying not to lift that part of my foot off the floor, but to stay super planted across the whole line of the metatarsals and just lift your toes. And again, if you are prone to fracture, teeny tiny lifting is really okay. We're not trying to put you in a place that feels risky. We're trying to put you in a place that feels empowering. And then if you can, start to play around with, lifting just your big toe, just your baby toe, the 4 toes. You can alternate side to side. And again, if you can't do that, if you can reach your toes, you could use your hands to help. And then if you have a ball, this is one of the tune-up fitness balls. They're my favorite. Then you can start to do this nice gentle roll using only as much pressure as feels gentle and soft and not risky to you. And if you're watching this video and you're like, wow, she's using a lot of words like safe and risky, you have to be, we have to address each person, each body, each experience of osteoporosis as its own individual thing, right? I'm not prone to fractures, so I feel safe doing much more intense work with my feet. You might feel the same way. But remember, if somebody has a lived experience that they can fracture a foot just walking across the room, then they need a very different kind of effort. They need a very different kind of stimulation, and their maximum load is very different. So really keeping this whole exercise and movement in osteoporosis process very targeted to what you need is my goal for you. I'm never going to give you a one-size-fits-all, everybody should do this, exactly the same kind of advice. So there you go. You can take your foot off the ball, back on the floor. See how that feels sitting down, and then, you know, you're going to lose my head. You can stand up and see how that feels on the ground. And hopefully that gives you a little bit more sense of connection to your feet, a little bit more sense that your feet don't have to be painful all the time, and that the rest of your life, now that you've started playing with your feet, will give you a little bit more pliability and a little bit more responsiveness that might help to protect you from trip and fall and stumble fractures in the future. Like this, give me comments down below. If you have questions, put those in the comments down below. I'll come in and answer your questions over the course of the next day or two. Okay, bye.